Hey everybody, this is Miss Fant at Andrew Johnson Elementary again. Today we're going to be talking about your spelling words. We're going to be talking about R-controlled vowel sounds. So the letter R can affect the way that certain sounds are made within words. So I've got the word purse. So if I say the word purse, I don't really hear the U because the R kind of takes over that sound. So even though it's P-U-R-S-E, the U-R is controlled by the R. Okay, so it goes purse, purse. So that's just one example of many of the different ones that can be controlled by an R sound. The U-R can also be an I-R spelling, an E-R spelling, an E-A-R, and an O-R spelling. So to make that sound, we have all those different types. So here's a chart with those words as an example. For that U-R for fur or blurry, you have that U-R in each of those. For I-R, you have dirt or squirmy. They make the same sound as their counterparts here, but they're spelled differently. You also have an ER for nerve or permit. This looks like ear, but it can actually be spelled for earth. And you also have the word research with that same spelling. You also have one last OR, worm or worship. You have a spelling cutout card that we're going to look at here in just a second. Other than the sound, you have an ear sound that is also an R-controlled vowel. So ear, which I know the other way it was and it was E-A-R, but this is another way to pronounce it that's still an R-controlled sound. So year, weary. You also have I-E-R for an I-R sound, peer, and cashier. You have E-E-R for another type of peer or career. So even though these all make the same sound, they're very different spellings for that sound. All right, so you had a U-R sound like in fur, and you have the I-R that's going to be like peer. So or ear. Those are your two different ways to spell those. Here we have a list of those different R-controlled vowels. So in this first list is the U-R, urge, rural, urban, dessert, or turnip. And think about the way that all of these words are spelled. Think about if there's one that looks a little bit different to you, but it still makes that sound. All right, it should be dessert. I'm sorry, it's not dessert, it's desert. Sorry about that. We also have thirsty, shirtless, squirrel, avert, or alertness with that sound. Herd, learner, worry, worst, reverse. Steer, deer, career, peer, and fierce. Do you notice the difference in the sound between line 3 and line 4? It went from the sound to the ear sound. Line 5 is yearly, spear, cashier, tearful, and eerie. I went to the circus with my dear friend Herbie. So I want you to pick out the R-controlled vowels in this sentence, and I just want you to think about it and all the different ways that those are spelled. Here we have our spelling word cutouts with the R-controlled vowels. What we want you to do with these is take a sheet of paper, and even if you don't have the actual cutout, you can take just a regular sheet of paper. You can write the words down in columns, and then you're going to cut those words out. And then for that sound, you're going to make a column with just all the sounding words, like earth and burnt. Those are all going to be in the same column. And then you're going to make another column with the ear sounds, okay? So up here, ear, and peer, ear. Even though they're spelled differently, they have the same R-controlled sound. So that's what you're going to do with those. And again, write it down on a sheet of paper if you don't have access to a printer, or if you just don't have the copy of it itself. You have it right here. So if you have any questions about that, then you can ask your teacher. But it should be fairly self-explanatory just to get something to write those down. Now we're going to talk just a little bit about our fluency piece for this week. We talked some about those R-controlled vowel sounds, and we've got that cut out in that activity for us to do. Now we're going to talk about how would we read something with fluency and with expression. So this is called a science experiment. I'm going to read the first couple lines of this to you fluently, but with very little to no expression. And I want you to pick out the difference between this first reading and the second reading. So if I'm going to read this without expression, I'm going to say, the purpose of this science experiment is to demonstrate the power of gas produced when baking soda and vinegar are combined. Step 1. The first step is to place a test tube where it will stand securely upright. Be careful not to hit it or knock it over. You don't want to hear the loud noise it will make if it shatters. All right, so that was a very monotone voice that I used to read that. If I go back over this and I read it with expression and prosody the way that it's meant to be read, and I'll read the whole way through, it sounds very different. And I want you to kind of take note on what sounds different and which one you would prefer to hear. A science experiment. The purpose of this science experiment is to demonstrate the power of gas produced when baking soda and vinegar are combined. Step 1. The first step is to place a test tube where it will stand securely upright. Be careful not to hit it or knock it over. You don't want to hear the loud noise it will make if it shatters. Step 2. Fill the test tube halfway with vinegar. Step 3. Give a balloon a good stretching, as if you were about to blow it up. Step 4. Using a funnel, carefully pour baking soda inside the balloon. Shake gently until the baking soda settles to the bottom. Step 5. Making sure none of the baking soda gets into the test tube, carefully stretch the opening of the balloon to cover the opening of the test tube. Step 6. Once the balloon is firmly attached to the test tube, lift it so the baking soda will flow into the vinegar. You might need to give the balloon a shake to make sure all the baking soda falls inside. Step 7. Watch how quickly the balloon inflates. To get the most gas out of it, you might need to swirl the container to get it all going. What causes this to happen? The vinegar, an acid, creates a chemical reaction with the baking soda, which is a base. When the substances combine, they become carbonic acid, which is unstable and decomposes to become carbon dioxide, a gas, and gases rise. As the gas tries to leave the plastic container, it goes up into the balloon because of the tight seal, and the balloon inflates. So thinking about the first way that I read this first little section in step 1 and the way that I was able to read the second section, which one would you prefer somebody to read to you with? Or how do you see yourself as a reader? Is it more monotone and kind of flat, or do you read with all that expression to really get the most out of what you're reading? So have fun with this, and we will see you next time.